literally what I wanted.
I might
Yeah.
put these up. And pop this in.
Welcome to the last few weeks of wedding planning. I am very relieved it's coming up soon, but while I tell you guys how the past week has been, I am going to show you guys my hotel room because I'm in the Hyatt Canberra right now for a work conference. A week ago, I got into an argument with relatives, my mum and then Bill, and so that took a toll on my mental state and my body because I was already quite riled up about different things that were being changed by parents. And so basically I kind of just lost it at everyone, and I did not fare well with their requests and them kind of building on top of the work I already had, and I was just really annoyed all around. And so I basically had a really bad night, and then the next day my vertigo that I had been having since the day before New Year's Eve unfortunately worsened and became 24/7 instead of on off like it was for the previous fortnight. So for the past week my vertigo has been really bad. It only got exacerbated from a wedding that I went to where I tried not to dance. I wouldn't say that I jumped around or anything, but I think it was just the general movement of just walking around all day, taking photos, being happy, of course, trying to enjoy the event. And basically it got a lot worse to the point where I was bedridden on Sunday and only went outside my room to have dinner. And basically on Monday and Tuesday, I had to go to the office because of this work conference. We just had to prepare for it physically. And basically I'm now here at this conference. My boss did actually say that I didn't have to go if I didn't want to, but that was just yesterday morning. And I was like, you know, this is an annual conference where my role has quite a big role in it, especially for the first half of the conference. It's hard to explain to people. When I say I have vertigo, it just flies over their head. Like some people don't really know what it is, or they just think it's like generic dizziness and they're like, oh, get over it. Like if you're a bit lightheaded, like it'll pass, it's fine. I actually brought some Dramamine, which I forgot I actually bought a few years ago when I last had vertigo. And so it was a very disgusting tasting pill. If it comes up to the end of next week and I'm a fortnight away from the wedding, obviously that is just even worse. Like what am I going to do? I actually have a friend who got married last month and has a condition that causes her vertigo, and she took so many measures to not get dizzy on her wedding day, and yet she still was. And so even though I am following a lot of her advice, it's just like no guarantee. Like I literally have no idea what my body is going to be like on the day. So I am trying to take every single measure that I possibly can, but like I don't know if it's going to be enough. And so that's why I was like, let's try the Dramamine. If not, if I am just at this conference for the next 4 days and I just feel really bad, I'm going to see a Canberra-based GP. And my colleagues were like, honestly, I feel like that's a good idea. Like you haven't even seen one about this yet. And I was like, true. I did not think that it would get to this point where I'd be so close to my wedding and still have it. And I just feel really bad, really terrible, because like most of the time I'm not bumping into anything. It's like I can still walk in a straight line because I'm really concentrating. So I think if someone only observed me for say a minute, I think they wouldn't even really be able to tell. So it's really hard for me to kind of like convey how severe it is. I would hate to think that any colleagues would think that I'm like faking it to get out of work, especially so close to my wedding. Like I feel like it's triggered by stress because the last couple of times I got it a few years ago were also from stress. So I think it's very self-explanatory that it's my wedding coming up with this conference as well. Really overwhelming, like put together. And so it is really annoying. It is really frustrating. I'm trying not to think about it too much in a negative light. I'm trying to think of it more from a health point of view and trying to just like, as my friend said, just like treat my nervous system right and basically treat myself right and just have like some really good self-care because it's coming up so close to the wedding. And honestly, I was trying not to relate them to each other at first because I just felt too freaked out that like the wedding was so close and I had this. And my friend was just like, you know what, like you actually only get married once. I really try and slow down. And I was like, I have a conference the rest of this week. So obviously just not the best timing. And I just feel like it is definitely going to get out of hand if I am still like this closer to the wedding, because then I can't even do like the first dance because I had so much spinning, and the first dance practices were actually part of the triggers as well. Like it's no one's fault because obviously I wanted to do a first dance and wanted to do practices, but like I do think that it did play a little bit of a factor as well. So there's just so many different elements, and basically I'm sick. Like I genuinely just like can't walk properly, can't think properly. Apparently it kind of like also slows down oxygen going to your brain. And so at first I was like, oh, I'm so dumb for not being able to work or think or speak as fast. Like genuinely my memory has been like just fading from my brain. And then apparently I heard about the whole oxygen thing and I was like, oh my gosh, so it's real. Like my vertigo is literally making me think slower. It's not just me being really dumb. Really over it at the moment because it's obviously coming up to like a month with a vertigo, which is just like horrible. Like I haven't heard of anyone's vertigo lasting more than that. So if it does, and there's something probably seriously wrong with me, I'm not gonna lie. So I'm gonna actually start off by doing my BPPV exercises, which my physio friend said that I should do thrice a day. So I am going to do that while I am in this hotel room. I also wanted to add to this video the marriage counseling video that I was going to finish. Basically, I was going to have a part 3, but turns out that the last time I spoke about a topic was one of the last sessions that we had. So we actually have one more coming up, and that is actually going to be between me and Bill. Ken still made up an actual study with questions for us, but they're for us to privately talk about. So the topic is sex and romance, and I think because it's quite an intimate topic, maybe he didn't want to lead it. I think usually counselors do try, but I think he just thought that was best between us. I suppose that he probably thinks we have open enough communication to do it ourselves. So that won't be filmed because I don't even know when we have time to even talk about it, but we will one of these weeks. And that's why I'm going to put the marriage counseling video that I was in the middle of into this video now. And I really can't remember when I filmed it. It looks like it was cold when I did, so I think it must have just been months ago, maybe like October or even September, not exactly sure, but enjoy, and I'll see you guys back in the present after. Welcome to part 2 of what I have learned from marriage counseling to lifestyle and entertainment. So it was pretty lighthearted just because we've been together for so long, since we were 18, and even known each other since we were 17. So we kind of know what the other person likes doing as hobbies, what we don't really like sharing, what we like doing together. And so it really wasn't too hard, I would say. I think it's the easiest topic out of all of them. We started off with lifestyle, so talking about what kind of neighborhood we want to be in long term, and we talked about if we can actually afford a house here in Sydney. Second most inaffordable city in the world right now. We would love to be in just a double-story house where we can raise kids freely and also host events. Like that, I feel, is not really asking for too much, but in this economy it just feels like it is. So we were like, you know what, at this point, as long as we're not in an apartment for the rest of our lives, like we can actually afford to buy a house, then that would just be fantastic. We talked about how our next aim is obviously for an apartment, and then after that either a townhouse or duplex depending on what we can afford, and then eventually like a double-story house. So that would be perfect. Used or new car. I currently have a new car, which my dad drove for a couple months before giving to me, so that was really nice of him. And then Bill has only ever bought used cars, so I don't really mind, honestly. I think used cars are just so much cheaper compared to new ones here in Sydney. Apparently it's more of an Aussie thing. Apparently overseas used cars are still really expensive, but here they're pretty good. So I feel like we can just keep doing used cars unless we can suddenly afford a new one day. And also just obviously depending on the brand and the model as well. A talent that we wish God had given us more of. And I actually took this really lighthearted. I said dancing just because I'm really uncoordinated, got 2 left feet, pretty nervous about the first dance for the wedding. And then Bill actually launched into a kind of a more deep discussion, which I think is where most of our time went into for this session, which was him basically saying that he wished something to do with his intelligence or just like achievements or studying. He has definitely grown up in a household with, I suppose, more academic or just intelligence expectations on him. So he's definitely grown up a little bit differently to me. I was kind of taught at school and at home most of the time, like, do what you want, just enjoy what you want to do in the future. Like, yeah, there is such thing as like unstable income, but in the end, just try and do the best that you can. Whereas he grew up with a lot more pressure, both from school and family. So I feel like he just had a little bit of that struggle when it comes to that confidence in himself and just like continuously keeping going. Not that he's not resilient, he definitely tries very hard as a person and everything, but I feel like it's just the fact that there's always that kind of pressure or maybe like a niggling kind of like message in his head, like, oh, you haven't done well enough because you didn't do good in this, you know, that kind of thing. So I think it's just a different kind of upbringing. And I did ask sub questions to Ken, who is the pastor, like, what do I do as someone who just grew up really differently, and like I'm trying to empathize with him and I want to support him as a future wife, but obviously it's just harder for me to understand than maybe other topics that I relate better to. So we did talk about that for a little bit, I think like 45 minutes, which was kind of insane. What's a simple pleasure that just makes us smile no matter how our day is going? I think I just said seeing Bill, and I think he said the same thing, because honestly, it does make me feel a lot better. I do want to be careful about obviously being more like codependent on each other and not relying on each other for like every single curing of negative emotions. Like we obviously need to be more independent as well in general, but I feel like for us, it's not like an issue. I feel like there's only been one really small window in our dating lives together, like I'm talking a few months, where I think I felt a bit more interdependent and like really had to rely on him when I was feeling down. But I think I've like gotten out of that stage, which is good. We talked about dream holiday destinations, spoke about Europe and how that's our honeymoon destination, but we can't book anything unless Bill gets a job. Then we talked about owning a pet. Neither of us grew up with pets. I did grow up with various fish. We didn't even name them. Like they were mainly actually there with just my dad. So we don't really count them as pets. And my mom currently refuses to get any. I feel like she'll probably go the rest of her life without having one, because she hears from her friends all the time that it's like having a newborn baby. So she's like, no way. So I think for both of us, we just said if we had to, or like, I guess no one's going to force you, but if we really wanted to, it'd be a little cat. But like we haven't actually thought about doing that in the near future, because obviously that's an extra expense that you don't have to have. So we just need to save as much money as we can right now in our youth. What charity aside from the church would you most likely support and why? So we just spoke about how both of us are a little bit skeptical when it comes to kind of like more major charities that everyone knows about. You have like staff in those charities, you have like maybe office spaces, and so you actually need to have normal business expenses that sometimes those donations might go to. I don't think that he has donated much to charity in his life. Like at my school, it was very much promoted. So I have donated little bits here and there. But we did talk about how at my workplace, we have had a couple charities come in and speak to us. And so the first one was an African school that someone who is Australian actually started when she was like not that much older than me, I think. A lot of the graduates from her school have gone on to be like the doctors of Africa. And I thought that was actually helpful, like tangible. We also recently had another charity of someone who had her son die of a rare cancer that only 26-year-olds get diagnosed with in Australia a year. Apparently it's 200 in Europe, 300 in America, because they're bigger countries. And so I thought that was really interesting and obviously very tragic. She's raised about 6 million to actually go towards, for example, getting like the machines that you need to properly diagnose or cure, etc. I don't know the details, but I could see those tangible numbers. And she said that it used to be during her son's time that they would have about 9 months to live. And then now it's been extended to, I think, a year. And I think that that's just like so much difference. Like you just don't know what will happen in those few months where you can live so much life together with the person you love. And so, especially since they're a child, it's just like even more sad. Usually the last few months of someone's life, they're like slowly regressing and then probably not just being their normal selves anymore. So if you think about it, like if before it was 9 months, then only 6 months of that was spent actually having fun with the child. And then maybe the last 3 of them actually starting to slowly die. And then if it's a year now, then it's like 9 months of having fun and then 3 months of them slowly dying. So it's just like that extra time that obviously every family needs. Where do you want to be after 5 years of marriage? We essentially said having our first kid. Like we would love to be about 28 when we have our first kid, whether I'm pregnant or actually have the baby already. I'm not really too fussed, but we would love to just start having kids before 30. We then moved on to entertainment. So what's been your favorite entertainment memory together so far this year? Ken asked us to actually write down each of our answers and then he would read them out. So my answers that I wrote down here are doing errands together, having our engagement party, finishing Hogwarts Legacy, the game. And Bill was quite surprised. I can't exactly remember what he said, to be honest. They were very generic. As you can see, I feel like unless you've dated for maybe like 6 months and you don't really know each other too deeply yet, I feel like if you have a normal length relationship, like you would know all of these answers about each other and you would know each other's quirks, habits, hobbies, entertainment. So for us, having dated for half a decade, we definitely kind of just like knew all the answers and we basically just didn't have really any major issues that came up with them. So it was a pretty good session. Finished off with my second last session of marriage counseling. So the final one is actually at the end of the year. He started off with how is wedding planning actually going and how do you decide who's doing what and how do you feel about it right now, because he knows that I am very stressed and basically planning about 97% of it. Like I am just a lot more of a fast-paced person and so I naturally get more things done, whereas he's a bit slower, and so in one day he'll maybe do about 4 or 5 things maximum, and so it's kind of just hard to gauge and to kind of like connect on that standpoint. At the topic of friends and foes, what will we do if one of us really likes to hang out with someone but the other doesn't? We just spoke about how neither of us really full on hate people, like we don't hold grudges. Little bits of trauma and friendships issues you have in life where you might think to yourself, oh my gosh, like I'm never letting myself get through that situation again. Like sometimes some particular personalities can really traumatize you, and that's definitely happened to both Bill and I in the past. But I feel like in general, we are not the type to be like, oh my gosh, Bill, like your friend there sucks, like you better not hang out with them anymore. Ken kind of pushed it further with talking about relatives, because he does see that as people get older, there's always that like one family in the whole relative family tree that like doesn't want to come to Christmas because it's like something dodgy with like someone's auntie who's going to come too. So he was just like, this is more about how will you handle conflict with people when it does happen. Any habits that we have physically where they just affect our health. So OCD, too much alcohol, and he joked, even eating like a banana, because he knows that I don't like banana. Like I really hate it. It's like the worst fruit. And so he roasted me a little bit about that in the actual sheet too. Like it literally says it right there. We have been together since we were 18, and so there's nothing really that we don't know about already. Like I have a bad tailbone, he has a bad ankle from sport, and for example, I get peer pressured a lot less than he does. I'm kind of just like, these are my values and I am not changing them for you. I just want to be someone's companion and support. And he spoke about the husband being the head and the wife being the neck, and just being someone who can guide him in the right direction. And basically we just aligned pretty perfectly on that. I feel like when it comes to husband and wife roles, we do tend to agree with most things. I feel like for me at the moment, it's more like the challenge of working out how to submit to a husband, like the Bible says that we should. How might I lift Bill up when he's feeling down? At the moment, I tend to ask a few questions to kind of gauge why he's feeling the way he is, or to kind of help him prompt to think about why. And then I basically give him a hug and just give him a bit of affection, and usually he feels quite a bit better after that. And it's really funny because Bill kind of does the opposite for me. So he like gives me the affection, like a few comforting words and a few probing questions. So we kind of like do it the other way around, but I think currently it does work for both of us. What will you say to Bill if he fails to stack the dishwasher properly? This was really funny because usually it's me. I mean, he's just better in general with housework, which is funny because I would love to be a housewife. But I basically talked about how I've always seen myself as just caring a lot more when we have our own place. I know it sounds selfish, but me right now living in a family home that is basically operated by my mom and like ruled over by her is obviously very different to having my own place that I've paid for, with my own furniture, with the way that it's furnished and laid out how I and Bill want it. Life might go incredibly wrong, and there will be periods of time where it definitely will. And so I feel like it's very important to know that you are making a very, very large commitment to one another. And a lot of people don't really understand that. And I feel like that's why a lot of divorce happens, or even just no commitment at all, like de facto relationships or situationships. So that's why marriage just isn't really valued as much as I think it should be. I don't think I would say that I discovered anything that I haven't really learnt about before, which in a sense is really good. It was just kind of more like a reminder of like how important the vows are. I will be back for the final installment. Bye room. This might be one of the last times I stay in a 5-star hotel for a very long time, so I am trying to cherish it, and I'm very grateful that I got to stay here because I felt like I was living in luxury for a little bit, and I'm going to miss my room very much. I kind of like the fact that I had this time of solitude before the wedding, and if it wasn't for the vertigo, I would have felt a lot more chill and very like vibey with this. But unfortunately, I am technically sick, so I couldn't enjoy it as much as I wanted, but nevertheless, it was a very nice spot to have the last 4 days. What do you think?
It's good.
I like it.
I think she's very good.
Yeah.
I like the haircut.
Looks clean.
It's safe. It's clean. I'll do a taper fade next. And then a mullet.
Oh my. I just got a call back from the GP, which is very surprising. Often when they get the results back, they don't tell you so soon. But He called me and said that he saw a correlation between my iron being really low and the vertigo. So basically in October 2022, which I think was a month before getting vertigo last, my iron was apparently 14. And when I took my bloods just a few months ago in October again, it was 20. So that's why yesterday when he told me to do a blood test, I was like, do I have to? I don't really like doing them. They make my arm get in pain. I don't like seeing the blood going out, but he did it really fast for me. And I'm back to 14. So he says, based on pattern as well as all the other investigation where you don't have an ear issue or a brain tumor, basically you just have really low iron, and when you hit anywhere between this 14 to 19 range, you basically get vertigo and you are literally just super low on iron. Like there's nothing else really to it, I think. He said that I can consider iron infusion, and I said, okay, my wedding's in a fortnight, can I do it like next week? And he was like, no, because you actually might get sick for a week if your body just can't really adjust to it. It's just like obviously a whole massive infusion of a supplement like just transferred into your body. So he was like, you might not react in time to feel well for the wedding, so that's too risky. So make a note for after the wedding. If you still have the vertigo after, obviously consider the infusion, and we'll discuss things like what you eat. I was like, oh gosh, my diet's pretty bad. And he said, for now, all I can really do is take the 1 tablet a day of iron that I can take, which I started yesterday, and just took one right after the call as well again. And he said that because it is a fortnight away, I might not be 100% on my wedding day. Like I might not fully get rid of the vertigo, but I'll still be better than without any vitamins. And it's just like too late to do a quick fix like an infusion, so I can't really do anything about that. So that's kind of sad. I don't know if his definition of I'll be mostly okay by the wedding day means like 60% okay or 95% okay. Like obviously there's a big difference, but I'm hoping it's more the latter. I'm hoping that I hardly feel dizzy on the wedding day. That is obviously what I'm praying for. I just thought I'd give you guys an update because I have decided to spend the next couple of days at home because I just feel so bad when I'm walking around a lot. It just for some reason gets really bad when I'm literally just walking up and down my stairs. It's getting way too close to the wedding for me to not be worried about this. At least I know what it is now. At least I have to be alert on eating, for example, red meat, because I genuinely can't remember the last time I did. Like I've been eating a lot of chicken the last couple months from my memory. I feel like I've hardly had red meat. Like I cannot even really think of situations where I've properly eaten red meat. So I definitely need that. And apparently also vitamin C goes well with iron, which unfortunately I don't have, not even in the form of orange juice. So I have to go out and buy that. And he also said that ashwagandha gummies, which I'm really sad about because they were really yum, berry tasting gummies. Apparently it's kind of more of like a hippie thing. It's not really like a real medicinal thing. So he said that's not really that relevant, but I mean, I can take it if it's yum because I complained to him that it was yummy. And he said that zinc is okay. He kind of just recommended the iron, the vitamin C, and the zinc, I'm pretty sure. I have to be patient. I have to just hope that me starting this a fortnight out from the wedding will mean that I am mostly okay by the wedding day. Like I'm really hoping like 95% not dizzy, like please. And we will see how things go.
Yeah, sweet. Get a photo of Bill.
What is that, Bill? What is that?
The best day of my life.
Let's go!
Will be the second in the February 8th.
Let's go!
Wait, best day of your life? I thought today was the best day of his life. He's lying to us.
Sorry, just for today. Today's the best day of my life.
Let's go!
For the boys, let's go!
The vertigo has definitely subsided. Like I would say it's a 2 out of 10 right now. And I have been working on the iron, but basically my dad called to catch up and I was like filling him in on what the GP said. And if you don't know already, he is in the medical industry, and he was like, First of all, you're taking lifestyle iron tablets right now. So they were about 78 milligrams of iron in each tablet. And he was like, there's actually a medicinal one, which the GP did actually tell me to go and get, which is 370 milligrams per one. So it's basically a little bit less than 300 milligrams more, which is obviously quite a lot. Bill happened to be out, and so he bought it for me. Told him that my iron level was 14. So apparently to be eligible for a fusion, you have to be under 30. So more than half of that already. So I am more than qualified for it. And my dad was like, you know what, even though your GP said there's reactions, I have dealt with people who've done infusions before and I've never seen a reaction. So I feel like you should just go and get it done, especially this week. I got interrupted, so continuing on, basically I would need at least a week to recover just in case I do react, and so obviously it has to be done now with a fortnight to go till the wedding. So I don't know why my life is just so chaotic, especially my physical health right before the wedding, and I'm feeling all kinds of guilt, especially connected to work and not being able to work as well as I should be able to since last year. We've just arrived at the venue for the third time to do a tour with our DJ friends, Stu. So we're gonna see what all the ports are like. And we're also going to just look at the venue in general, because I went to a wedding with the same amount of people as us and their room was massive, and this room is definitely not as big, and I'm really worried that people aren't going to fit comfortably. But it also wasn't our fault for inviting so many people, because we did want less than we have right now. So it's not really our problem, to be honest. So hopefully people can sit comfortably. I just doubt that they will be able to. I thought it'd be really nice to end off this video and just the wedding planning series in general with the final wedding that we are going to as fiancés. Their reception venue is the same as ours. We actually met the same person who's going to be at both our events from the staff team. I actually went to another GP yesterday who was one of my dad's friends, and she was like, I'm not even sure if you actually have vertigo. It sounds like lightheadedness to me. Personally, I don't think it's lightheadedness, but that's what she thinks it is. And then we thought about doing the infusion, and basically I've been told that this vein here is not big enough to actually get blood. And then the other vein, I looked down, I didn't even realize, but from my blood test on Monday, it was actually bruised. So that vein is essentially punctured, apparently. That's what the doctor said. So I couldn't even get the infusion even if I wanted to, because I was still on the fence about it. Like, I didn't know if it was worth putting my body through potential side effects afterwards, just because I'm very small. I find that I react very easily to different things that are meant to help people, so I'm a little bit worried. Also, most people aren't as small and skinny as me, and I feel really paranoid about like reacting to certain medicines I've never tried. So I just thought that I would be one of those people who's very susceptible to the side effects, which are apparently feeling really sick. You might even have to go to hospital if it's super bad, having an allergic reaction. This is a bit too close to my wedding. Like, the only reason why I would have gotten it would be to boost myself for energy for the wedding. And then she was like, who knows if your vertigo is actually related to the iron anyway. Like, I don't know. Like, there was just no way to tell. Like, no one can tell how dizzy someone else feels. Like, it's just all kind of in your head. Like, it's not like the world is spinning, it's me who's spinning. So it's just so hard to actually explain and get it diagnosed. Dizziness has definitely subsided, especially in the past 5 days or so. So I'm really happy about that. Like, the last time it was super bad was Monday, after I went on like a 10-minute walk, and I just felt really bad after. Bill decided he does want to give everyone a gift. So at their table, they'll sit down and they'll likely have a jar of blueberry jam and maybe even a little mini milk carton as well, because he wanted to kind of make it a joke that it's each of our favorite like kind of foods. I'm not gonna lie, it's been kind of funny with him saying that he's really stressed, because he's kind of acting like how I was half a year ago when I was doing the bulk of the wedding planning. And I kind of just think it's funny that like he's getting a taster of the stress that I've been through with the planning and also work, and he also has study to do, and I'm just kind of at this tail end of like, let's focus on my health. Like, I don't really want to organize anything new right now, but he does. We also actually met our florist yesterday, and we dropped off 3 boxes of fake flowers that were actually a gift from Bill's uncle from overseas. And basically we are kind of being made by his family to use them now. Obviously, like, I'm grateful, but it's kind of just like, you could have sent it 8 months ago. Throwing something into the mix as well, and now we have to pay the florist a bit more for, say, like labor as well. Even though I am very type A, I don't feel like I'm as perfectionist and as anal as people kind of make me out to be, just because like I know that I'm not in control on the actual day itself. I just really like planning. And so for me, it was more like people just kind of biting at me and being like, you're selfish for not letting me do this. And like, you know, I don't care that it's your wedding. I want you to do this. And that kind of really frustrated me. Like that was what angered me the most. And I think that's when everything just took a toll on my health, my body, and I just really got stressed out. So I know that it wasn't the most positive experience or even the most helpful with what I filmed, because I didn't film every single bit of planning for you guys. A lot of this was me just talking to you guys, explaining how things were going. Has not been the best. I would in fact rate my wedding planning experience in general as maybe like a 4 out of 10 at the moment. Like maybe I'll look back after we're married and think that it's better, but I think as of now it just has not been a fun experience. I'm not expecting it to be the best day of my life, as a lot of people like to say. I'm expecting it to just be a good day where I can see all of everyone's hard work, especially mine and Bill's, actually come to life. And so that's what I like the most about my events personally. I will see you guys when we are at the wedding. We're on the way to the reception. Seeing our venue for the first time. I got changed and I redid my makeup, and I'm wearing my friend Annie's dress for the first time. Actively look up.
Never lose.
Has just wrapped up 2 years of doing ministry traineeship.
And I'd avoid that at all times around. He had brought in we were before as we stood.
And I was thinking, well, actually, this aversion and boxes of metal.
Was it the plan? Or fate all along? Hands, not holding hands. It's what they'll do. Boys pushed aside. Ba, ba, ba. Why did Jaden fall so hard? We've been denied. Ba, ba, ba. True love got us all off guard. Oh no. What have they been doing? Double dates with all of their friends. But you wouldn't have known that Jaden was the boyfriend.